Hello, and welcome to our Tween and Teen Art Camp Kit demo with the Public Library of Brookline. My name is Abby, and I'm the Tween librarian at the Brookline Village Library, and I'm here today to show you all how to make this Pride embroidery project. Alright, so let's get started. Is this your first Public Library of Brookline To Go program? Here's how it works. Each month, the library is offering new take-home program kits, complete with everything you need to follow along and video and written instructions created by one of your local librarians. The best part? Absolutely no due dates. You can keep everything included in your kit. Visit brklib.com/to-go for a full list of our current kit offerings. Kits will be available starting the second Monday of every other month on a first-come, first-served basis. Now let's get crafting. Alright, to get started, we'll go through everything that was included in the kit that you picked up from the library. So you should have one piece of embroidery cloth, one embroidery hoop, a fabric marker, 6 skeins of embroidery floss in all the colors of the rainbow, a needle, and your embroidery pattern. You will also need a pair of scissors. They were not included in your kit, so you'll need to provide those at home. To begin with, we'll be drawing our pattern onto our piece of cloth using that fabric marker. And the fabric marker is water soluble. So if you mess up, you can just run your piece of cloth under water and start all over again. So I would recommend doing this on a hard surface like a book or a table. I'm using a book here, and I'm just going to place the pattern underneath the cloth so that I can see it. And then I'm going to use that water-soluble fabric marker to trace the pattern onto the piece of cloth. And you should do this kind of towards the middle of the cloth to make sure that you'll be able to fit it into your embroidery hoop. And if at any point you do mess up, that is totally fine. Like I said, the markers are water soluble, so all you would have to do is run your piece of cloth under cold water and it'll just erase that marker, and you can dry it and start all over again. So after you have drawn the pattern onto the cloth, it's time to place your cloth into your embroidery hoop. And what you actually can't see here is that I completely messed up on my first attempt at this, and I had to run the whole thing underwater and start again. But you know what? You can't even tell, and that's the great thing about those water-soluble markers. And so what I did is I ran it under the water, and then I used an iron to iron over it to dry it quicker, and now it's ready to be placed into the embroidery hoop. And so you'll take that embroidery hoop apart and place the pattern right there in the middle of the bottom, and then you'll take the top part of the hoop and place it on top. And make sure that you're getting that right in the middle, or as close to the middle as you can. And then you'll take that little spinner on the top and close and cinch your embroidery hoop tight. And then you can make sure that the sides are taut, so you'll pull on it a little bit, not too much because you don't want to stretch your pattern and kind of morph it, but you want it to be evenly tight all around the hoop so that when you touch it, there's not a lot of give to the fabric. So you shouldn't be able to like push the fabric in the hoop. When you push it, it should feel nice and tight like a drum. To begin with, we're going to be doing the flag, and so I have my red floss here and my needle. Obviously we'll be starting with red since that's the top of the flag. So I'm going to cut off a good, 10 to 12 inches of this embroidery floss. And then from there, we will use the needle and all of the embroidery floss to thread through that needle. And you want to make sure that you're getting all of the strands of the embroidery floss through the eye of that needle. Each length of embroidery floss is actually made up of 6 strings, and you want to make sure that you're getting all 6 of them through the eye of that needle. And to begin, we're just going to pull. You start up there in the corner of that hoop and just push it right through, like so. And then you'll pull it, but you don't want to pull it all the way through. You're going to stop with a little bit of the red floss left there behind. And so from here, there are a couple of different ways that you can continue. The easiest way is just to tie a knot in the end of that floss. And I would definitely recommend doing that if this is your first embroidery project, is just to tie a knot. It doesn't make it the prettiest way, but it is the easiest way, especially if you're a beginner. So that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to tie that knot, and that's just so your floss won't come through the hoop, obviously, whenever you're embroidering. The type of stitch that we're doing on this pride flag is called a satin stitch. And so to continue your satin stitch, you'll just follow along that pattern all the way to the other side of the flag, and then place your needle into that other side of the corner, and then pull it through, and then you'll have your first little satin stitch. Just like so. And it's really that simple. And so from there, we're just going to basically do that exact same stitch with the rest of the red and then all the rest of the rainbow colors. So I'm going to come up just below that stitch, so not in the same hole, but directly below it, like as close as possible. So I'm going to come up with my needle right there below it, pull it through, and then go to the other side. And I'm going to do that for that whole little rectangle of red. I'm going to do that satin stitch. And so I'll meet you back here whenever we're done with the red and show you how to kind of finish that off and change to another color. So I'm done with my satin stitch with my red. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish off that red, and then we'll move on to our next color, which will be orange. So I'm going to flip it over and then take my needle and then just run it under one of those little stitches on the back. That way I can create a couple of knots in the back, and then I'll cut off the rest of the floss, and that'll just help secure that red so that it's not coming apart, which we definitely don't want to happen. And so I've cut it there, and now I'm going to move on to my next color, which is orange, and I'm just going to do that exact same thing that I did with the red with the orange, and then you'll do the exact same thing with all the other colors after that as well. So we have orange next. We're going to cut off about 10 to 12 inches of that, and we're going to thread that through our needle, and then we'll do that exact same stitch that we did with the red. We're going to do that with the orange. And so you'll start it the same way, you'll embroider it the same way, and you'll finish it off the exact same way. And then after the orange, we move on to the rest of the colors. So after orange, obviously we have yellow, and then green, then blue, and then purple. So you can see here that I've completed all 6 colors of the rainbow using that satin stitch. And from here, the next step is to move on to the words, and we'll be using a stitch called the back stitch to stitch those words. Down there at the bottom, let's just say pride. And so I'm going to use blue for my words. You can choose whichever color you want. Really doesn't matter what color you make the words. I just like blue, so I'm going to use blue. And so I've prepared my needle just the exact same way that I prepared it when I was doing the other stitches. And from there, I'm just going to go from behind and pull my needle through at the bottom of that P. And then from there, I'm going to make another stitch there at the top and pull it through there. And we have our first stitch. And from there, what we'll do is we'll make tiny little stitches all the way around that P. So you see I pull it up, there's a little bit there, and then I'm going to pull it through and go through that exact same hole from before. So we're going to make sure that it's going through the same hole. And there's a back stitch, and then we're going to do that all the way around that P. Whenever you're going around a curved pattern like this, it's best to do little tiny stitches, and then if you have kind of straight stitches like the side of that P, you can make them that are stitches that are a little bit longer. But since the side part of the P is curved, I'm just going to make tiny little back stitches. And so making sure that I'm going into that exact same hole that it first started. And then after I finish that P, I'll move on to the rest of the letters. And you don't need to stop and like cut and make knots and stuff when you're moving between letters like we did when we were moving between colors, because we're just using that one color of thread. So since you're only using the blue, there's no need to tie it off and then start again between each letter. You can just do all the letters consecutively. But then after you finish with all the back stitchings and you finish that last little exclamation point, then you will want to finish it off like you finished off your colors up there. So you'll flip it over and then make a few knots on the back to make sure that your embroidery is secured. Alright, great. We've finished that back stitch, we've finished our satin stitch with the pride flag, and now it's time to put the finishing touches on our embroidery project. From here, you can do another, some more like back stitches along the sides of this flag if you just want to even it up a little bit. That way it doesn't look so jagged on the edges. I'm not going to do that. What we're going to do afterwards, so you'll see that pattern is still underneath there. After you finish everything, you can run it underwater. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to do something called a running stitch. And this is how you're going to finish off your embroidery project. So you'll take just any color of embroidery floss, doesn't matter, because you're not actually going to see this floss on your finished project. It's going to be all in the back. And what a running stitch does is it kind of gathers up all of that extra material and pulls it tight in the middle of your project on the back so that you can't see it from the front. And it's called a running stitch because it's just one big, long, continuous stitch around all of the project. So I'm just going to insert my needle like so. You can start anywhere. And from there, I'm just going to go like back and forth along the cloth to create a running stitch. And I'm going to do that all the way around. So you'll be able to watch me do it here. But I'm going to do that all the way around my embroidery project, all the way around the hoop. That way it pulls it nice and tight in the middle. And so once again, I'll meet you guys back here once we're finished with that. And from there, we'll be able to finish up our project. But remember, just going to do that running stitch all the way along the back of your project. And after you've completed that running stitch, this is pretty much what the back of your project is going to look like. I took my scissors and I cut off the excess fabric there, and then I tied some knots at the very end to complete that running stitch. And now when you turn it over, look, it's so beautiful. You can't see any of that excess fabric. And from there, you can run your whole piece underwater to get rid of that fabric marker, and then just let it dry. And then after it's dry, you're ready to hang your embroidery project with pride.